So, the analytic method. What is it? Well, let's imagine that we're trying to think about a scientific concept. In the case of philosophy of medicine, like the most obvious thing that comes to mind, the thing I think that most philosophers of medicine spend most time thinking about is what disease is, or what health is, or health and disease, the relationship between them, that sort of thing. Say we've got one particular concept in mind that we're trying to get to grips with, and disease there might be our example. What we can do as analytic philosophers is basically three things. We can describe a concept, so that would typically be basically looking to the way that it's used. So if you're looking to describe disease, what you could do is go and see how doctors talk about disease, right? That's the idea. You then analyse, and that's the second part. And what that is to basically look very carefully at your description, or the way that your sort of description has come together, and see if you can figure out maybe what kind of work the word disease is doing in particular contexts, how it's being used. And then you can synthesize, you can connect the way that disease is used, maybe with other kinds of ideas. Maybe there's some kind of interesting relationship between health and disease, for example. Maybe they're opposites of each other. That's at the root of the World Health Organization definition of health, right? That it's not just the complete absence of disease. That might be a bit intangible. So let me see if I can introduce a prop. This is a Lego model. Could be a child's Lego model, but it's actually one of my Lego models, what I just built, using the very best of my Lego skills to create this simple aeroplane that looks as if it were done by a 6-year-old who was slightly pushed for time and short on parts. Anyway, let me see if I can try and relate the description, analysis, synthesis thing to this. Imagine that this Lego model is one of the concepts that we're interested in, say disease. Your description would be, well, as it sounds, you describe it. So it's a fairly crappy looking kind of aeroplane thing. It's made mainly out of Lego blocks, with yellow Lego blocks, with some black and green bits, particularly on the wings. It's got some little bits underneath that are meant to be engines. It's got some even less kind of good bits underneath that are meant to be little feet. I don't know if you can see those at all. And it's got a tail that actually looks like a plane tail, mainly because I stole it from some other existing kit. So that's our description. We could add all sorts of other things in there. We could say it's about 10 centimetres long. We could say it weighs about, 30 or 40 grams or something, that sort of thing. And that description could get, more and more fine grained. So we could say it's made out of, 31 Lego blocks or something like that. So what's analysis? Well, it's basically, and this is I suppose why the concepts get these kind of ideas get a bit intangible, because basically it's sort of more fine grained description. So let's imagine that analysis is basically taking our plane to bits. So we can see that we've got these wings. And actually, you can tell some interesting things about the two wings. So they're green Lego. They're not quite a straight edge on here, right? They're slightly curved. They are chiral, so you can't they're not exactly the same shape, right? If you put them together, they're facing in different ways. So you have base parts on both bits, and so on. And we could continue our analysis of the Lego flyer more or less indefinitely. Now the point is that for Lego, our way of analysis is basically taking stuff apart and talking about how it's built and what the components are made of and so on. For most analytic philosophers, your analytic tool is logic in one way or another. Don't worry, this course doesn't have really very much kind of formal logic in it at all, but we will be relying on methods that were primarily developed to take advantage of the properties of formal logic. There's an interesting historical story here that we can tell too about Bertrand Russell and Ludwig Wittgenstein and their followers. But I think that's probably better done on paper than on video. So there should be a link below, and there is also a link on Moodle to a kind of brief essay with interesting references and so on that will tell you that kind of story if you've never heard of it before. For those of you that have done a bit more philosophy of science, I think this thing is probably quite old hat, so maybe we can move on. Synthesis would then be, and this is where my analogy gets really stretched with the Lego model, about sort of maybe comparing this to other related Lego models, right? So we could go and look at a whole bunch of planes and say, well, these are alike because they all use these non-chiral wings, so that you get asymmetric left and right wings that both have the kind of pushy up bits of the Lego, the dot bits on top, and so on. We could compare them to other things. I suppose to stretch the analogy even further, it might be a bit about rebuilding the Lego model to make it a little bit less lame. But there we go, description, analysis and synthesis. You'll notice that for those of you that are doing the assessed version of this course, that these kind of descriptions are baked into the way that we assess coursework. So we're looking for analysis. When you come to actually writing on philosophical topics, we'll be looking for you to demonstrate skills at describing, at analysing and at synthesising. And that's something that we'll also cover a bit in the essay writing guides that will be coming up later on. Anyway, Lego, analysis, description, synthesis.